All right, we're we're live Sunday morning, 10 o'clock Colorado time. Thanks for getting up early on a Sunday, snowy Sunday morning, Ryan Roth.
Good morning, Mr. Noffsinger, from a cold, snowy, and 27 degrees here in the Dirty G.
Oh snap! Well, it's about time. I mean, every year Halloween, right? It's usually when it starts. I remember as a kid, I dressed as Han Solo one year. And my mom made me wear a coat, and I cried and cried, and I didn't want to wear a coat and then she told me I looked like Han Solo on Hoth, and so I said, okay, I'll do it.
Oh, yeah, so, then it was all better.
Yep. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. This has been an episode that's been kind of in the works for a while, and we've had a couple requests where I'm in the hot seat, and people get to ask me questions, so I couldn't think of anybody better than my friend Ryan to do it. Ryan and I met, 2019. Through our friend Chalice Springfield's Unstoppable Curiosity. Is that what she calls it?
That is.
She had a Sherpa class that was well, I'm checking something here, Ryan. We're shit. Okay, no, we're good. She had a Sherpa class, I think is what she called it, kind of a business coaching class. And I took it because I was trying to figure out a way to turn my hobby into a business. And you took it because you were in a transition of a career transition, a pretty heavy duty career transition. And we met through that. And then I think we started drinking bourbon and beer together. And then, and that was 3 years ago. Then COVID hit and we started having these online kind of drinking clubs, Wednesday and Thursday night drinking clubs, and it was a lot of fun. So Ryan is one of my dear friends, and Ryan, as we talked about on an earlier little short one, Ryan has 4 amazing kids and an amazing wife, and a really cool job for Aloe Fiber. And so Ryan, just give a few little bits about yourself, and then we'll turn it around.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you asking me to be on the talk this morning. It's going to be a good time. A couple of guys just sitting here. Unfortunately, we're a couple of different time zones away, but it's going to be a good talk this morning. Just like a couple of guys having a cup of coffee, like we do at Ziggy's when you're in town. But been in Greeley 28 years now. Very fortunate to be married to my lovely wife Jennifer for coming up on 26 years next summer. 4 great kids. We have 2 right now up in Portland, Oregon. Our bookends. Noah and Sarah Beth, and then our 2 middles, as we call them, are here in Greeley. One's teaching full-time, and one's working with the rebalance program in the school district. So we're just couldn't be prouder of them. Like Paul said, working for Aloe Fiber, doing PR and events, so I get to go out and shake babies and kiss hands, as they say, which has been a cool gig to have for 4 or 5 of my communities here in Colorado. And when I'm not doing that, hanging out, local breweries. You see me down at Weldwood, see me over at Tight Knit Brewing, our good friend Tommy. Used to be a Denver Bronco fan. Unfortunately, we're going to probably hit, after we lose to Kansas City today, I think it'll approach 1,500 days now since the Denver Broncos defeated the Kansas City Chiefs. So as I was talking to a couple of friends of ours, their kids, who are 7 and 6, have never known a time that the Broncos have defeated the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's just crazy to think about. So
well, and the trade deadline's on Tuesday, so this should be a pretty active. Tomorrow should be pretty active. Hopefully, maybe. I read an article about Surtain, and the asking price for Surtain is 2 first-rounders.
Don't think you're going to get that.
I mean, that's the Cowboys. I read an article this morning that said the Cowboys were interested. So we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. The Broncos will be a different team on the field next weekend.
Are you happen to watch the World Series? Are you excited that your Houston Astros are not going to be champions this year?
Fuck the Houston Astros. I hate the Houston Astros. I'm glad they're not in there. What I think's funny is that none of the teams that won 100 games made it very far. And it's just, it shows that parity in baseball that really any team can win. Any team but one can win. And I was rooting for the Phillies. They didn't make it, but Arizona, Arizona's the kind of they're both surprises, I guess. I don't think anybody expected this to be the World Series. So,
but I see Arizona won 84 games this year and was just 2 seasons removed from 102, 103 losses.
Yeah.
So there's hope for our Rockies.
Yeah, yeah. You keep that hope alive, right? You can keep it alive for all of us.
Keep dreaming.
Yep, yep.
Well, hey, let's start off real quick. Going back to a statement you made as we open our show today, being in Chalice's Unstoppable Curiosity, and one of the reasons that you had joined was to further your chosen career, which was doing magic, and turn it from more of a hobby into a career and something that you could look forward to and plan ahead for. And I remember something that you had said or had been planning on that probably November or December of that year, and that you had a cruise ship, some sort of tour lined up. Is that, am I recalling that correctly?
Yeah. My friend Jack Pachuta and I, from Milwaukee, I attended his murder mystery party boot camp in Milwaukee to write murder mysteries. And I traded the bed and breakfast. It was this old haunted Brumber Mansion is what it was called. And I traded them a couple of nights at their place to do a show for them. And so we packed the little room at the house, and I did a show, and Jack loved it and he liked my ideas for the murder mysteries that I was working on. So we put together a cruise ship where we were going to have two different cruises, one to Cuba and one through, I think, the Bahamas, where it was a murder mystery cruise ship, and you signed up, and it was from the minute you got your packet, you were investigating a murder. And I worked so hard on it, and it was really, really something. It was really going to be something awesome. And then COVID hit, and I lost both of those. And my friend Paul Prater, who holds the record for most appearances on this show now, he and I had 18 city tour that was supposed to start March 22nd, 2020 in New Orleans. And, you know, we just, all those just started falling. So COVID really took a hit for a lot of people, but, you know, I didn't die. Nobody I know died. So I bounced back. We're starting to get back to where people are touring and people are you know, artists are doing more shows. So hopefully it's back. We'll see. We'll see.
Hopefully most of our watchers today know you fairly well, but for those that don't, can you walk us back a few years previous to that? There you were at your desk doing accounting and banking for a couple of different companies and banks in Northern Colorado, and you've talked before. There was just a time when you were like, you know, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be the dad that passes away, and they thought, man, he could really nail those spreadsheets, and boy, can he balance a ledger at a bank. So maybe walk us back to those thoughts and that ultimate career transition you had all those years ago.
Well, I went to school to be a history professor, and I wanted to teach junior college or community college history because I think that's where real learning happens. And I thought it would have been a great history teacher. And in grad school, I decided I'm going to take some time off. I've been going to school straight every summer through college and and I said, I'm going to take some time off. There was an ad in the paper back when people used to read newspapers, and there was an ad in the paper for a bank job that said no experience necessary, which is exactly the amount of experience I had. And I applied for it, and I got it, and I found I had a knack for numbers, and I had a knack for banking, and I enjoyed it. And 18 years later, I worked for a couple of banks. I was the finance director for the Greeley Area Chamber of Commerce for a couple of years, and then got back into banking. It was a compliance officer for a small community bank, and I loved that job. I loved it, and just needed a change. Banking was hard for a while. They were shutting down a lot of banks and really kind of putting the clamp on community banks, and it was no fun. So I went to work for the world's largest beef company and managed international credit lines for about 7 or 8 years. And right before I turned 40, I just thought, you know, I don't know that this is how I want the second chapter of my life to be. My kids are a big deal. They've been on the show a couple times, and my kids are a really big deal to me. And I thought, my kids, there's a great Ernest Hemingway quote that I quote all the time, that a man dies 2 deaths. His first death is his natural death, and his second death is the last time somebody says his name. And my kids will never brag to their grandkids about, man, you should have met my dad. He was so good at Excel spreadsheets. Or they'll never say, you know, sometimes I'd get up in the morning and my dad would already be at work. I'd eat breakfast, go to school, come home, do my homework, eat dinner, go to bed, and my dad was still at work. They'll never brag about that. You know, and so I decided I've got an opportunity to do something that I love, and so I gave my notice and told them I was going to be a professional magician, and I don't think they believed me. And I really thought I'd be back in a year. I really thought that within the year I'd be back behind a desk, and it worked. It worked, and I caught on, And I think you've seen several shows, and for those of you that haven't, it's not a magic show, and I'm very, very lucky. My lot in life is not wasted on me. I am the luckiest kid in the world that I get to do this. So I've gotten to perform all over the place, and for so many different people. I performed for 15 people on a train in Peru, and I performed at the Stanley Hotel, and I've performed at civic centers and auditoriums for 2,500 people. I'm pretty lucky.
So there was young Paul launching his magic career. One of your first shows, if I recall, was at a local school. And you learned very early on that, unfortunately, sometimes things during a show when there's audience participation can and will go wrong, even when the audience member wants to become the point for the show.
Yes, it was my very first paid show, and it was for a high school tennis team that had won state, and it was for their banquet. And I opened with a traditional an old standby in Magic called the tossed out deck, for those of you that know that. And the woman lied. The woman lied about the card. And I was green. I had no experience. I didn't know it. I didn't expect people to fuck with you on free Magic. And she lied. And I had no way out of it. I had no way to get out of it. I had no way to figure it out. And now I have a million ways to get out of it, but I don't do that anymore. And you just kind of learn. You learn real quickly who you pick and who you don't. And I still the other night I did a show here a month or so ago, and I had a woman that was just not into it. And it's like, why did you volunteer? Why did you come? Why? And she just made it really hard on me. So whatever.
So you've had a pretty successful run this last month or so in Little Rock. Talk a little bit about what you've been doing to keep yourself busy, and of course, leading up to Halloween, some of the shows that you've had the opportunity to partake in.
So my friend Paul Prater started this Haunted Arkansas Tours company about 7 or 8 years ago, and it's grown, and he's brought on another tour guide named Amy Jones, and she's great, and she does a more traditional tour, history and architecture and that kind of stuff. And Paul was doing this tour called the Booze and Brews Tour, and it's you go in and out of bars, and it focuses a little bit more on the seedier side of Argenta, which is downtown North Little Rock. We talk about prostitution and murders and drugs and gambling and that kind of stuff. And so Paul wanted to kind of grow, and so he's been doing some seance shows, and he asked if I wanted to step in and do the Booze and Brews. So I've been doing those this month, and they've been wildly successful. We've had great turnouts and sold out most of them. Amy sold out most of her tours, and Paul sold out most of his seances. So I've got one more tour. I think it's Wednesday. It might be either Wednesday or Thursday. I think it's Wednesday, and that's the last one of the season, and then we'll gear up and hopefully do them again next year.
Now, are the people that are showing up at these, are there regulars that show up? Do you feel like you have a different group of folks every night? Do you feel they're tourists? Are they Little Rock folks?
It's mostly Little Rock folks. There has been some out-of-town people. I feel like kind of a complete imposter, which is, kind of my story. I'm telling stories that aren't mine. I'm telling it, I could do a Greeley history tour if there was any interest in it, if Greeley could sell any fucking tickets to anything. And I know it. I know that I've lived the history. I've known it. My family's known the history, 100 years of having a business there. I feel like a little bit of an imposter and a phony telling the stories of Arkansas, but I've got it. Paul wrote the book. I mean, he literally wrote the book called Haunted Argenta, and he's been a big help. And Amy works for the History Commission, and she's helped quite a bit. It's fun because a lot of people come to these tours, and they're from Little Rock, but they have no idea that these stories, and Paul got most of the information from the newspapers. And I kind of operate that most ghost stories, if not all ghost stories, are made up anyway. So you get to kind of grow them and tell some fun stories. And I've worked several routines that I've been crafting for years in on it. So I've had experience with ghost tours before. Excuse me. I helped a friend in New Orleans put together his ghost tour and a little seance show after the tour, and it's something I've always wanted to do. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
You kind of glossed over it, talking a little bit about some of the places you've been able to perform and some of the audiences that have been able to see your show, and talk a little bit about the Stanley this summer and how cool that was for you, how special that place is for those that don't know up in Estes Park. Tell us some more about your run there at the Stanley this summer.
Yeah, it was a really big deal. My good friend Aiden Sinclair, when I met Aiden, he was doing just magic at some bars, and working at selling cars at the Chevy dealership, and he had this great idea, and he's one of the best performers I've ever seen. You've seen his show, I mean, he's one of the best. Mm-hmm. And he had this idea to pitch a show to the Stanley, so we started working on a show with the Stanley, and then he got accepted to go to America's Got Talent, and I helped him work on that and consulted on that. And we sold the show to the Stanley, and he was very successful enough that they built a theater for him. And he opened the theater a couple of years ago, and he invited, it's an invite only. There's lots of people sending me. I'll bet he gets dozens of emails a week from magicians that want, and he kind of crafts who he wants. So he's asked me several times to come up there, and it hasn't worked. I'd been out of town, or I'd had other gigs, and also I really didn't think my show was, back to being an imposter. I didn't think the show was worthy of the Stanley Hotel. And so he had this idea that Paul and I do, Paul Prater and I have done shows together for a couple of years, and we have such a good rapport. I mean, he's one of my best friends, and we have such a good rapport because we do the same similar magic in complete different presentations. Paul's a trial attorney, or he's an attorney, so he's a little bit more straightforward, and I'm a smart ass, and I joke, and it's worked really well. So we did 7 shows in 6 days and sold out 5 of them. And it was just really, it's kind of like the way I can talk about it. It's kind of the Carnegie Hall for the kind of magic we do. It was really, really a big deal. I'm very proud of what I put together there, and very proud of what Paul put together there. And it was really an experience. It's definitely at the one of the top things on my resume for sure.
Well, we are talking with Paul Noffsinger, CEO extraordinaire of the Mystery Collection and the Mystery Collection Conversations here on a snowy Sunday morning from Greeley, Colorado. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask Paul, today's your chance. Fire those off to the Facebook page. You can message me, and we'll make sure we touch on a couple of those throughout the course of the morning. Paul, you talked about many of the people that you've had the opportunity and privilege to work with. Prater, Aidan Sinclair. I know several years ago you've talked about the time you were able to, I believe, attend and talk to or work with Penn and Teller.
Yep.
Am I recalling that story correctly? Maybe share with your audience what you learned.
I got to hang out with Penn and Teller for after their show for several hours. And I before that, I'd gotten a chance to, I picked Penn up in Denver when they did a show in Greeley. So I got a couple hours with him. I got to pick him up and drive him up to Greeley. And for those of you who've seen the show, my swan song, or my I don't know what you would call it, my opus is the story of my imaginary friend when I was a kid. And I got to go through that from A to Z with Penn and Teller, and I got to perform it, and I got to talk about it, and I got to kind of get their advice, and it really is my favorite piece I do. It'll never ever leave the show, and it was really, really fun to get the chance to talk to them about what I do and how I do it, and get some advice from people that that get to do this.
Was there anything insightful that you learned that you've either worked into your show or advice from them that you carry with you to this day?
Well, I guess probably, and this is going to come for people that are out there that know me. This is going to be odd to say, but economy of words. I'm a storyteller and I'm a talker. And the first run of the Yehudi, my imaginary friend story, was considerably longer, and I kind of cut it down. And for those of you who've seen it, it's a true story. It's an absolute true story of my imaginary friend when I was a kid, and so maybe Teller doesn't talk, so you get a lot of economy of words lessons from him, but it's about presentation. That's all the Mystery Collection is about presentation. It's about the stories. My very first show I did at the Moxie Theater in Greeley. We sold it out. The venue holds 130, and we sold 160. So there was people standing up in the the little balcony they have above. There was people standing up there, and I had a magician send an email saying that he was afraid that I didn't know how boring I was. That the audience was bored because I only did 9 tricks in 90 minutes. And the first review on Facebook was from a woman I did not know, and she bought a ticket to come see a show, and her comment was, I'd have paid the same amount just to hear him tell those stories. And so whose advice do I want more? Whose critique do I want more? A magician who says I didn't do enough tricks, or somebody who dug the stories? So that's what the Mystery Collection's about. I'm a storyteller. I love it, and much to the chagrin of a lot of people, I repeat stories quite a bit, but they're good. I think they're good. So
One of the questions that I'm sure you get frequently, and most magicians do, is, well, how'd you do it? Or what's the trick? Or what's the misdirection in the show that I missed or that I should look for next time? Talk a little bit about your philosophy of tells, of telling people how you do it. I know there's a forthcoming book that you're going to be discussing some of your strategies and some of your ideas and stories. So maybe share a little bit about your philosophy on that.
So I guess it
depends. How some magician.
It depends on who's asking. A lot of people want to know, how'd you do that? How did you do that? And I said, well, it's I've been crafting this for years and I've been working on it. But if I had a magician in New Orleans, I was doing shows there, and he came up to me after the show, and I didn't know him. I didn't know him at the time, and now we're friends, and I like him quite a bit. And he said, hey, that routine, where's that from? Well, there's a series of books that are kind of the Bibles of magic called the Tarbell Lessons in Magic. And it was a send-away where you would get a chapter mailed to you every couple weeks. And I just blew him off and I said, it's in Tarbell. And you can get it in Tarbell. And he said, do you know which volume? And I said, I think 3 or 4. I just blew him off because I wasn't going to tell him. I worked hard on this shit. I wasn't going to tell him that I came up with it. And a couple months later, I'm doing another show in New Orleans, and he comes up and he says, hey, Paul, I read through 3 and 4. And he brought them. He brought 3 and 4 with him. And he goes, and I can't find it. And he goes, I really want to just kind of know the history of it. And I said, all right, let's have lunch. And so I told him, I said, he did the work. He did the work and looked in Tarbell and discovered it wasn't there, that I was blowing him off. So but somebody told me, these secrets, I learned them. And so if somebody wants to know, legitimately wants to know, and they're going to do good with it, as opposed to be that dick in the audience that I know how he did that, or watch TV, and say I know how that's done. Somebody told me, I've got a couple mentors in magic that the Mystery Collection would not exist without them. My friend Lou, the great Ludini, is absolutely one. The Mystery Collection would not exist without my dear friend Lou. So he's helped me and taught me and showed me things. So if I can help somebody, I will. But if they just want to know to be that guy, I'll blow them off.
Now, you have a couple of forthcoming books, if I understand things correctly, that you've been working on. Maybe talk about either or both of those. Well,
the Mystery Collection, From the Vault of the Mystery Collection, has been in works for 7 years, 7 or 8 years. And I just haven't finished it because I'm lazy. It's hard. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be. I thought it would be easy just to spit out my knowledge and my stories. I've hired a woman to help me do it, and I've really dropped the ball. I've been pretty busy the last several months, and I need to get back on that. I'm going to take a little hiatus, which we'll talk about later. I'm going to take a little hiatus from performing and focus on a couple personal things, focus on a couple professional things, and I really need to get this book out. And it's going to be the stories and the routines from the Mystery Collection show. And once I get them on paper, they're mine. And that's kind of the concern is I'm touring around and doing this. Magicians come to shows and they see things. Well, they borrow them. My imaginary friend routine, which is, again, I'm very, very proud of. I performed it at a convention in South Carolina a couple of years ago. And I got an email from a guy saying, hey, that I'd never heard of, that none of my pals had ever seen perform. And he goes, well, I just want to let you know I've got an imaginary friend routine as well, and I perform it pretty regularly. I just want to let you know that it doesn't have anything to do, it's not like yours, but I'm performing it. Well, what he wanted me to say, okay, good, go ahead and do it. Well, I didn't even reply back, I want to get it in print so they're mine. I want the just kind of the ego proof that this is stuff I've come up with, stuff I've worked very, very hard on. And so the Mystery Collection, it's tentatively called the Monkey's Paw, and that's for a fun little side thing I'm going to do with it for some friends and people that have contributed to it. But the Monkey's Paw is the W. Jacobs story from the late 1800s. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's very short, but it's about the idea that an object holds some energy and some powers, and so we'll see. And then the other book was not my idea. And I don't know that, I think you're the biggest supporter of the other book, but our friend Tamara, who's an amazing person and a great writer, she writes for the local newspaper. She's going to help me put together the Mystery Collection book. And she had the idea of a children's book about a young kid who's a magician who uses his imaginary friend to perform magic. And it's the adventures of the magician and Yehudi. And it would be very fun, but we'll see. We'll see. I've got. It would be great. It would be a fun idea, and it's a great idea. I don't know that I have the shit. I don't have the bandwidth to put together the book I've been working on for 7 years. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
There is a certain ring to add to your bio. Best-selling children's author, Paul Noffsinger.
Right.
Go on a book tour, start signing books to little kids. It's going to be great, Paul.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm. Fingers crossed it comes up and that I get to put it together. It would be a lot of fun. It would be a lot of fun.
So you've had the opportunity over the course of the last couple of years to live in some pretty cool places. Live and travel too. I know you spent quite a bit of time in New Orleans working with your restaurant there, and now you've been in Little Rock for, going on probably 6 months or so, back and forth between Greeley and Little Rock.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about some of those adventures. Why Little Rock? I know you've spoken very highly of your friend and mine, Paul Prater, and Sarah that lived there. You've developed some pretty good relationships and friendships in Little Rock. Compare and contrast. Deep South, I know you love heat and humidity, so that must be one of the main reasons that you've enjoyed the South so much. But talk a little bit about some of your adventures, either in New Orleans, Little Rock, maybe some things you miss about Greeley. I know that's a lot to think about and ponder, but the floor is yours.
Well, the New Orleans was kind of just a bunch of really fun coincidences. I was in the right place at the right time and I had an opportunity. I was doing shows for a woman down there at her venue. I was doing shows pretty regularly and doing very well with them. And I loved it. I fell in love with the city. I fell in love with the people. I loved it. And this opportunity came up to invest in and start a restaurant. And I jumped and I dove in and I put a bunch of money in. And the plan is when my kiddo Ren graduates this May, my plan was to go to New Orleans. That was the plan, is to move down there and do this full time down there. And through a series of, I think, very deceitful business practices. I don't know business practices. I think I was lied to. I was lied to and misled by some business partners that just wanted money, and they bought me out. I didn't make it easy on them, but they bought me out, and it really kind of soured my love for the city and some of the people. And I have not been back since last August of last year, and it's sad because I love the city, but I don't know that would have been a good place for me to end up. Anyway, but I had access to an apartment down there, and I was spending a lot of time. Well, when that fell apart, I ended up coming out here to Little Rock to do a couple shows with Paul, and coming back every couple of weeks every month or so to do some shows. And I was out here about this time last year, and our Paul's girlfriend Sarah was moving her hair salon, and she said, "Hey, would you stay an extra week?" And so I stayed an extra week to help her move. So I was out here for 3.5 weeks. And I just, I kind of fallen into a pretty good group of people and some opportunities. We do really well at our shows. We've been performing shows at the Labyrinth, and we usually sell, I think that we've done 6, and there's only 1 we haven't sold out. And it was just a handful of tickets away from and it's mostly new people. I mean, most of the people there have not ever seen me. They've seen Paul maybe, but they've not seen me. And I kind of fell in love with the city and the people. So I felt like I was Cousin Dupree from the Steely Dan song, sleeping on Prater's house. And so I found this apartment, and I'm like, I think maybe I want to stay here. So I've got a year. I got a little over a year commitment left in this, about a year. I got till June. So I signed a year lease, and I really like it. I really like Arkansas, and it's not ever where I thought I'd end up. And I don't know where I'll end up. That's still kind of up for grabs. I have a house in Greeley that I promised my kid I'd keep until they graduate from high school. They graduate in May, and then I can kind of do whatever I want. I can do what I do from anywhere. That's kind of it. So I've made some really good friends down here, and I met a pretty amazing woman down here that I'm really excited about, and she's pretty awesome. And I don't know where it's going to go, and I know where I like it to go, but she's pretty awesome, and I really enjoy spending time with her and hanging out with her. So
I know one of the things that you've enjoyed most in your life, among many, is the opportunity to travel, and you've been able to see some pretty cool things in the world, both professionally, whether you're giving shows around the country, personally getting to travel, and I know you've been able to see some cool places. Off the top of your head, talk about one of the I have a couple in mind that I think you're going to touch on, but share with our audience today maybe one of your favorite trips that you've been on with your family, individually. Tell us about some of your adventures.
About 6 or 7 years ago, I don't remember the exact time, I got to spend 20 days trekking through the jungles of Peru and Bolivia with Giorgio from Ancient Aliens, and a small little group. I think there was maybe 10 or 12 of us that got to go to all the sites and do all the stuff. And I met a guy on that trip named John Bentley, who I've referred to on the show several times, who lives in Waterford, Ireland. He's one of my favorite people in the world. I love that man. And I keep in touch with him. Often. And actually, to rub it in you a little bit, he is the only one of my friends that has seen my apartment in Little Rock, Arkansas, all the way from Waterford, Ireland. So
how about that?
We were he was visiting, and we were sitting at my house, and I needed to get some stuff down, and I was going to leave the next week and drive straight through, and then I had a show. I was going to drive and then had a show that night, and we're sitting on the couch, and I was just telling him I dread this drive. It just is. I'm terrified and nervous about doing this drive and then performing and making sure. And he goes, well, why don't we go right now? Why don't we just take your stuff right now, and you can leave your truck and we'll fly back. So at 3:00 in the afternoon, we loaded up my truck full of shit and headed to Little Rock, Arkansas. Pulled in about 8:00 in the morning, and went and had breakfast, and then got on an airplane and flew back to Colorado. So John got to see some parts in the middle of the night. Of course, he got to see some parts of the United States he hadn't seen, and we got. So I met him. That's probably one of the coolest trips I've been on is South America with for Ancient Aliens. Another one, I took my kids when they were very young, my ex-wife and I took my kids on a 14-day Mediterranean cruise, and we got to see some really cool things in Greece, some really cool things in Turkey, just kind of a sampler of different places. And so it's on my list to go back for sure. Spent a lot of time in the UK. I've gotten to go to Scotland and Ireland, London four times. It's the world's only this big, man. This world's only this big. Yep. And if you get a chance to see it, you should. I want my kids to understand that, while they live in Greeley or Leah lives in Nashville, but while they live in Colorado or while they live in the United States, we really need to look at ourselves as citizens of the world, as divided as we are, especially as Americans. If you understand other cultures and see other things, I think you're a little bit more well-rounded. And I hope my kids have gotten that from me. I like adventure. I like seeing new things, and I like eating new foods and meeting new people. And I'm not done traveling. I'd like to go to Asia. I'd really like to go to Asia. Go to maybe Cambodia or Vietnam. I'd like to do. I've never been to Nashville either, so I want to go to Nashville. I think that would be a lot of fun.
If you ever get a chance and you are sitting in a ball next to Paul Noffsinger, ask him about the first trip that he took Ren on. Was it to Disney World, Disneyland? And there's a photo of just unmitigated joy.
It's the best.
When she first saw Disney.
When we didn't tell that kid what we were doing, and there's a video on Facebook, and when it pops up, I'll share it again. We woke the kid up at we had a flight that went out of Denver at 9:00, and we woke the kid up at 3 a.m, and the kid was just hair everywhere and pissed that we woke her up and said, "Hey kid, if you can get dressed in 5 minutes, we're going to Disneyland." And she's like, "Come on!" And her grandma was there and her sister was there, and we're like, "Kid, we got your bags packed. We got everything ready. If you can get dressed in 5 minutes, we're going to Disneyland." And we did. And I never had been to Disneyland until it was late 30s. I had never been, and it was really pretty special. It was Disneyland was really a pretty amazing thing for me. And maybe it would have been different had I not had my kids with me, but it was really pretty amazing to share that with my kids. So
those that know Paul know that he has a very diverse taste in music and in artists and performances. I had the privilege earlier this fall, got to see Ghost for my first time and experienced that whole production and that artistic creation of what Ghost has there at Fiddler's Green. Got to go with Paul and Ren. Great time. Really an incredible performer. Paul will talk about some shows either in little tiny venues where there have just been maybe a couple of dozen folks, all the way up to maybe some of those stadium shows or tours that you've had the privilege of seeing some of your favorite musical artists.
I was talking about this with my friend Mike Mosley the other day when he was on the podcast. I I probably of the concerts I've seen, I've probably seen Danzig the most, Glenn Danzig, and his different. I saw the Misfits reunion tour at Riot Fest. I saw the Sam Hain tour, the Blood tour, where they were soaked in blood the whole time, and I've seen Danzig probably 6 times on his own. I've also seen Tool probably 5 or 6 times. I just Ghost now 3. But I've also seen Steely Dan 6 times, and. You know, Steely Dan is one of those bands that I love. So it is pretty diverse. I love classic hip hop. I love late 80s, early 90s hip hop. I think it's I love it. I think there's no better song to me than Scenario by Tribe Called Quest. I think it's one of the greatest pieces of music put together. But then again, I this Friday, I'm going to go see Goat Whore. I'm going to go see a band here in Little Rock called Goat. And I've seen Goat Whore. The thing is, I've seen Goat Whore probably 4 or 5 times as well, because they were from New Orleans. And then I come back after I go for a short bit back to Colorado. I come back in mid-November, and we're going to go see Exodus. Gary Holt, he was the guitar player for Slayer for about a dozen years. He went back to his original band after Slayer, a band called Exodus, and they're amazing. So I like pretty Jason Isbell is another one that I was so lucky to get to go see. I saw him here in Little Rock at a venue the week before. He had sold out 2 nights at Red Rocks at 9,000 people. Mm-hmm. And I got to see him a week later at the hall here in Little Rock, Arkansas, that holds 1,300 people. It was pretty amazing. And oddly enough, the girl that I'm seeing was at that show 2 weeks before we met. She was at that show. She sent me a picture from that she took at the show, and I sent her one, and she literally had to have been 10 feet in front of me.
How about that?
Yeah, it's pretty serendipitous, I guess, as my friend, the great Ludini, would say, serendipitous.
We always think these performers, these artists, actors, actresses were going to be around forever. And we always think, oh, well, I'll see them next time, or I'll catch them on their next tour through Colorado or through Little Rock. Is there somebody that you feel you just aren't going to get to see?
Yeah.
Somebody that you regret not being able to see and probably won't get to experience them?
Probably Neil Young. Neil Young's been a big deal to me since I was a kid. My dad listened to a lot of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young and Neil Young, and I've loved Neil Young. And, you know, I had opportunities. I thought, oh, I'll have a chance. And I just don't know that Neil Young's going to come to my my area, you know, or do it. He lives in Telluride, so I think I could go hang out at the bottom of his driveway and just say, hey, buddy. But I don't think that's going to happen either. I did get to cross a lot of those off. I got to see Ozzy on the last Sabbath tour, and that was something I'd wanted to see since I was a little kid. I saw Wasp late last year, and that was something that 14-year-old Paul was just pissing his pants excited about. Iron Maiden, I got to see them. I got to see. There are a few that I missed out on that I feel terrible that I missed out on. A stand-up comedian named Patrice O'Neill. I missed it. I missed it, and I had a couple opportunities, and he died fairly young, and I missed that, and I regret not seeing Patrice O'Neill. But I've got a list of bands I want to see, and Exodus, I'll get to see them next month, and that they're on the list. The other ones I missed out on are, I think, like, I would have loved to have seen Prince. Prince would have been just a show that is just, and, you know, I don't know that I had as many opportunities to see Prince as I've had to see Neil Young and turn him down, but you just never expect, you know, Prince to die, you know? I mean, it's I've gotten to meet some of my heroes, which is a mixed blessing. I got to meet Hunter Thompson a couple times, and that was amazing. But then I got to meet Chevy Chase, and Chevy Chase is a dick. So it really ruined how I feel about Chevy Chase. It did. It absolutely did. Some mutual friends of ours that went with me, Bill, Scott Sandstead, and our friend Patrick went. And on the whole way home, we all thought, God, I kind of wish I would not have done that. I wish I could go back to Chevy Chase being Clark Griswold, or, you know, the guy that we see on TV, because he was such a piece of shit. So, yeah.
I know. Besides music, your magic show, you also, for those that have seen Paul's Basement, is a lover of books and literature, wide variety, obviously focusing more on the magic side of things. But you have a couple of very special books, I know, that are near and dear to you, a couple of special authors, which will then lead into story that I love hearing you talk about. Book signing, I believe, was in San Francisco all those years ago.
Yeah, Chuck Palahniuk. Yeah, Hunter Thompson's probably my guy. I was introduced to Hunter Thompson when I was 13 years old, and started reading Hunter Thompson at 13. Which I don't know that 13-year-olds really understand Hunter Thompson. The main thing I got out of the first book I read by Hunter Thompson was called Generation of Swine. And in it, he talks about a Submariner Rolex and that he hit a guy square in the face with the Submariner and broke his nose. So I told my dad I need a Submariner Rolex. At 13 years old, I decided I needed one. But I had a chance to meet him a couple of times. I have my first edition copy of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is signed to Paul. Don't try this at home. So Hunter Thompson, another book that I will put my book guy reputation on is Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. It's an amazing piece of work, and the story behind the book is I don't know, just about as good as the story. He thought it was a failure, and it got turned down for publication so many times. He thought it was a failure, and he ended up killing himself. His mother took it to a creative writing professor and said, "Would you read this? Is it any good?" The professor read it and said, "This is one of the most amazing things I've ever read," and submitted it for publication, and it won the Pulitzer for fiction that year. And we'll never get to know the story of Ignatius O'Reilly. We'll never get to know the story of Mina. We'll never get to know where those people came from. We just have what we have. We have Confederacy of Dunces, which is an amazing book. The other one, probably just off the top of my head, is Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. I reference that in all of my shows. I talk about the Boy's Life from Robert McCammon. I found it late in life. The best way to describe it very, very simply is it's Goonies meets Stand By Me. It's about a kid that believes in magic, set in segregated, I think Mobile, Alabama, maybe Montgomery, Alabama, segregated South, late 60s, early 70s. And he's dealing with a lot of, his parents are very progressive and encourage him to be kind and encourage him to be inclusive, but also encourage him to believe in magic and to believe in things that other people don't. And it's really an amazing book. The Boy's Life is, I found the book when I needed it. I found that book when I needed it. So
I know you're also a big fan of Centennial after having read that multiple dozens of times.
Yeah, that's James Michener's a little bit wordy, but Centennial is a part of the book. Centennial is a part of my show, part of my story, part of my imaginary friend routine, and Centennial is it's a fine book. It's wordy and it's big, but it fits where I need it. So yeah,
I'll set the stage for you, and you can land the airplane. There you were in San Francisco and had the opportunity to meet one of your favorite authors.
So I used to buy a bunch of books from a place in San Francisco called the Booksmith, which is now completely changed. And it's a metaphysical bookstore, and it's not what it was. But they were right in the Haight-Ashbury area. And I don't know how I found them, but I was buying dozens of books from them a month. They had book signings and so I got a Neil Young's book from them. I got a Bob Dylan book from them. They were doing high-end signings. And I developed this very good friendship with this woman named Christy, who was the book manager. And I said, one of these days, I'm going to surprise you and show up for one of these. And she said, well, don't surprise me. Tell me when you're coming and we'll kind of lay it out for you. So Chuck Palahniuk, if you're not familiar with Chuck Palahniuk, he writes wonderfully terrible books, terribly wonderful books. He wrote Fight Club, and he was doing a book tour for the book Snuff. The premise of Snuff is a woman who wants to set the sex on film record. She wants to have the most amount of sex with the most amount of people on film, and then she's going to kill herself live on the internet afterwards. And Snuff follows three men that are in line by their number. One of them is in love with her and wants to save her. One of them I think one of them believes he might be her son. And I think that the other one, I don't remember, it's been years. But I saw he was doing a book signing, so I called Christy and said, I'm coming out. And she reserved 2 seats right in the front row for us. And it was the night, it was at this theater in downtown San Francisco, the night that Sex and the City, the movie, premiered. So they had this huge theater, and then on one side they had the Chuck Palahniuk book signing, and on the other entrance they had the California premiere, the Northern California premiere for Sex and the City. So you had these 2 lines coming in kind of the same way, and one was for Sex and the City, which is very hoity-toity, very very fancy people, And the other one was for Chuck Palahniuk, full of punks and face tattoos and mohawks, and it was very fun because Chuck Palahniuk always hands things out to his audience, and he was coming out and he was handing out life-size blow-up dolls to people in line. Well, they were handing out in the line for Sex and the City. They were handing out pink fedoras. So there were people trading black blow-up dolls for fedoras, and it was pretty awesome. Chuck Palahniuk is if you haven't read his stuff, Chuck Palahniuk is an amazing author as well. Another one I failed to mention that is a really big deal to me is also Cormac McCarthy, and that is a person I really regret not getting to meet. I do have a couple really rare signed Cormac McCarthys, but the book The Road, the book No Country for Old Men. I can say that The Road changed my life. The Road absolutely changed my life. I read it when my kid Ren was very, very little. And if you have not read The Road, it is about a lot of things, but it's about being a parent. It's about being a parent. I don't know, have you read it?
I have. It's
okay.
Fantastic.
It's about being a parent. It's about the undying love you have for your kid and what extent you'll go to for the protection of your kid. That's what it's about. And it's pretty. I remember at the end, Ryan, I was reading it at the Farmers Bank in All Colorado. And when it was over, I cried like a baby. It was just, and I'm like, fuck, I got to compose myself. I got to go back up and be a banker. But The Road is an amazing book. And it's very quick. It's a very quick read. And
yeah. One thing that you and I have talked about, you've spoken about publicly here on the Mystery Collection Conversations is men's mental health, and that you sitting in your office crying, being so deeply moved by literature and by being a dad and taking care of Ren and got me to thinking of a very deep conversation. People can go back and rewatch. We don't need to rehash the whole thing, but let's talk a little bit about for mental health and men's mental health specifically here for a few minutes, and just how your journey through that and how you feel you've become a better human and a better man because of those some of those brave decisions that you made to get healthy.
Yep. Well, about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, the weekend of my birthday, my wife told me she was miserable and was leaving. And it came out of nowhere for me, really, it did. And I decided I needed to see a counselor right away to either be a better person for my wife and maybe work things out. But more importantly, I needed to be a better person for the world, and I needed to be a better person for me, and I needed to be a better person. I needed to get over a few things that were hanging up and keeping me from finding happiness. And so I interviewed several counselors and found one in Fort Collins that is great. And she challenges me and she asks hard questions and she's not afraid to tell me, the truth. Well, I kind of kept all of this on the down low, and I didn't talk about it publicly. I didn't talk about it privately with a lot of people either. And I had a show, and you can go back and watch the show. It's now I've put it on podcast form now, so you can listen to it as well, with a guy named Jake Anderson, who wrote a book called Gone at Midnight, the mystery of Elisa Lam. She was the young woman who disappeared at the Cecil Hotel. The famous security video of her touching the buttons and having this little breakdown that was very spooky. It was very scary. So I had Jake on to talk about the book because I had read the book, and I just messaged him and said, this is a great book. Well, when you watch the episode, we talk about Elisa. We talk about her quite a bit. But then it quickly turns into that he believes that she had a mental health issue, and that, and then he said, well, I've gone through some mental health problems, and I forgot I was being broadcast, and I had got so into this guy, and I've got a note on my phone, and I've got his email address. I really would like to have Jake back on. I think I missed an opportunity for a new friend in not following up with Jake afterwards. He was really, really an amazing guy, and we talked about, and I just spilled my guts, and I said, listen, I'm seeing a counselor every week, and my counselor and my doctor had put me on some anti-anxiety, anti-depression meds that I took for 18 months, and they did exactly what they needed to do. They turned the static down so I could focus on what was important. And I was pretty angry, and I was pretty frustrated. And I got to tell you, I am a better person for the world, and I'm a better person for me now. And it gave me the focus to worry about what's important, as opposed, and it made, as I say, it made the gap between what I need to give a shit about and what I don't need to give a shit about a mile. And there's just some, not my monkey's not my problem, And I saw a meme shortly around there that said, one of the keys to happiness is saying, that doesn't mean shit to me. It has nothing to do with me. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It's not and that's kind of the, I lost a few friends in over the last couple of years, and they're just not my people, and I don't wish them ill. I don't want bad things to happen to them, but it's just not my bandwidth is I want to focus on the people that I love and the people that are with me. And I mean, I'm a lot, man. I'm a lot. And I know. And but I think that we as men are we've got a dear friend that told me point blank, some people can deal with this on their own and some people need help. And he said it more of as a slam to me, I think, that I needed help. But I'm not embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed at all to ask for help. If I don't know where I'm going, I ask for directions. If I don't know what to order on a menu, I ask somebody that knows. I was dealing with some stuff that I couldn't handle on my own, and nor did I want to, or nor should I have. And so I went to a professional. And like I said, I interviewed 8 different counselors until I found one that caught. And I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm proud of it, and I think that it's a journey that I encourage everyone to take a look at and see. And I've been seeing this counselor for over almost 4 years, and I'll probably continue it for quite some time.
Well, I appreciate your bravery and I appreciate your openness. Men a lot of times are told to bury your feelings and tough it out, put a little dirt on it, and so I think that's important that our viewers know and your friends know that it's okay to ask. As you said, it's okay to ask for help. The first time you drove to Little Rock, you used a GPS, mm-hmm. and you didn't know where you were going, but you asked for some help and got there safely and on time. So just friend to friend, I do admire you and respect you a lot for your openness in this journey that you've been taking these last 4 or 5 years. And it just speaks volumes to the person that you are, that you continue to just try and be a better human and see different places in the world, and just bring your friends along, bring your family along for that journry with you. So I how much I
don't believe in an afterlife. I don't believe in so this this isn't a dress rehearsal, man. I mean, how many people are just fucking miserable every day? You know them, I know them, and they're just miserable, and they get angry over the everything, and it's just, and they're uncomfortable to be around, they're uncomfortable to share with, and I don't want to be that person. I want people to want to be with me, and I want people to say this is fun, this is exciting. There's a great book that's written by Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama called The Book of Joy, and it talks a bit about the difference between happiness and joy. And happiness is a fleeting thing. Happiness comes with people and events and objects, which is amazing. It's amazing. I was shortly after my wife and I separated, I was dating a woman we had great happiness. We did so many amazing fun things, but the joy wasn't there. I was miserable, and you can't live just being happy. You need to find some contentment, and that you can have a life of joy with yourself, and have a life of joy just kind of relaxing in it. And it's a constant struggle. I mean, I still, I don't know everything, and I don't have everything fixed, and I'm still struggling with a lot of things. And but life's too short, man. I mean, I'm 48 years old, and I told this story just the other day to my friend Marcus. My mom, several years ago, found, we were at her house for Christmas, and she found a bunch of photos from my 13th birthday party. And I think I've probably shared this story with you before. And for my 13th birthday party, I had 2 friends, Derek Alsop and Drew Eisman, who were also the members of Homeboys at Home, my rap group. We went swimming all day. Then we went back to my house and we ordered pizza and we played video games all night. And my mom showed me this picture with me with my arms around my friends Drew and Derek. My 13th birthday. When Derek was 15 years old, he was hit and killed by a drunk driver on his bike. When Drew was 29 years old, he was shot and killed by his wife. And neither one of those friends got to be 30 years old. Neither one of those friends Derek didn't get to get married, didn't get to have a kid. Drew had married and had a kid, but none of them lived to be 30 years old. And it just breaks my heart. Every year, when I get older, people are like, you're older, you're older. You know what? It beats the alternative. I'm a lucky person that I get to still walk around and share and love and be friends and be generous and have the life I have. I mean, oh, I don't know. We're very, very lucky.
You, speaking of mental health and your vision for your future, short-term, long-term, you have mentioned that once you get done with this run there in Little Rock, you're going to take a little bit of time off to do some reflection and figure out what might be next. Rand will be graduating this spring within that, next 6 or 8 months or so. And talk a little bit about that, what you hope to accomplish and maybe some of your ideas for that time.
I'm very proud of the show I put together. I'm very proud of it. And it's taken me a long way. It's gotten me, I've gotten to perform for huge groups. I've gotten to lecture and perform for magicians and help teach magicians. And I'm very proud of it. But I also, I need some new stuff. I need to, a band, another band that I've seen Kiss 7 times. 6 times it was the same set list. And I'm not Kiss. I need some creative change, and I need some new. So I'm treating it kind of like when a band puts out an album and they tour for 2 years on the album. Then they go back to the studio and they rework the album. Then they go back out on tour and they perform new stuff. They're still going to keep a couple of the old ones, but they're going to put some new stuff in. And I just need that for my personal growth and professional growth. I need to retool a little bit. I've got some irons in the fire down here in Little Rock, a really cool project that my friend Marcus and Prater and I are working on that we hinted at when I had Marcus on last week, and hopefully we can make a big announcement soon. But we've got a project that I think is going to change kind of. It's going to be a big impact on the artist scene in Little Rock. And if that comes through, I get to work on that. I want to do the book. I got to figure out if I'm gonna, where I'm gonna be. I've got a big house in Greeley, Colorado that I don't need. I don't need this big of a house when it's just me. And so I've got a lot of opportunities and a lot of fun things to look at. And the selfishly and very braggadociously, I'll say I don't have to do anything. That's the thing is I could keep living in this status quo, but it's just not me, man. It's just not me. I'm very proud, and I don't want to say that I'm not proud of my show, but it needs some change. It needs some reworking, and just for my own creative juices, I need to retool some things. So I was working so hard to chase shows. I was trying to book shows every week, and I did, and it worked, and it was very good. But I'm in a place creatively and professionally that I just want to retool, and I want to focus on some other things. So I don't think I'll ever quit doing magic shows, but who knows? I was ready to wrap it up about 4 years ago. I was ready to wrap it up before I took Chalice's class. I mean, really, I was ready to wrap it up and be like, all right, I'm going back to work. This isn't what this isn't what an adult does. I'm not making any money at it. And if you remember, one of my things was goals is I want a check with a comma in it.
Yep.
That was I wanted to book a show with a check that had a comma in it. And that November and December of 2019, I made almost $20,000 performing magic in 2 months. And every check had a comma in it. And I thought, okay, this is, and then we started booking the tour. And that was really that was going to be, that tour was going to be kind of the pinnacle of the 5 years at work. I mean, March 22nd, when we kicked off in New Orleans, March 22nd would have been the 5th year anniversary from when I quit the JBS job, when I quit the bank or my last type job. And I thought, what a great way to start a tour. With one of my best friends, one of my favorite magicians to watch and to perform with. And then COVID hit, and I thought, fuck, is this what it's going to be? So yeah, it's just time, I mean, you've had several job changes in the last couple of years, and sometimes it's not because you're unhappy where you are, but you just feel a void. So,
well, we're looking forward to seeing and hearing big things both in Little Rock and Greeley. If anybody needs a big, beautiful house in Greeley, Colorado, I got a guy that's looking to move on from his. So drop a note in the chat today, and maybe you could be our neighbor as well, my neighbor at least.
I don't think I'm going to have a hard time selling it. The problem's going to be just getting all my shit out of it. So that's a project for the next couple of weeks when I get there. I've got 2 rooms. One of them I refer to as the Doom Room. And I'm going to hit the Doom Room. And I think once I get all the stuff out that I want, I'm going to have a estate salesperson come in and tag everything. And I'm going to go out of town for the week. And I'm going to say, what you don't sell, donate, and then put the house up. So I don't know where I'm going to end up. I know where I'd like to end up, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I luckily, like I said, I don't have to do anything. I can take my time and slow down, which has been a problem for me, is the slowing down. I've always had stakes in the ground, and this is part of the mental health deal. I've always had stakes in the ground where I 5 years ago, I figured I'd be married forever. I'd have this job forever. I'd do this. Well, then stakes come up, and then you try to put more stakes in the ground, and they come up, and more stakes in the ground. Sometimes it's okay to just, not have stakes in the ground and kind of see where you're going. And that's been a real struggle for me. So I'm working on it.
A work in progress, as we say.
Well, if you're, my friend Doc Eason, who's one of the best magicians I've ever met, says if you're ripe, no, it's something like if you're still grow, if you're a banana you're still green on the vine, it means you're growing. Once you get pulled, you start rotting.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. He says it better than I do, but you get the point.
Green and growing, not ripe and rotting.
Yeah.
Is another Chalice Springfield-ism as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
green and growing, ripe and
great
rotting.
Great minds. Right.
Yes. Hey, I got a couple of real quick fun questions that I'm going to run through with you, Paul. Just kind of a rapid fire, get to know Paul, maybe some things that I don't even know about you. But let's start off with just a real easy softball, and you can take as much time or as long as you'd like on any of these. But given the choice of anyone in the world, whom would you want as a dinner guest?
God, that's a good one. Living or dead? Does it matter?
Let's go narrow it down. A living person right now. If there's somebody that you could have as a dinner guest and have a meal together and just be, who would maybe a couple of those people be?
Well, I'm very excited that I get to have lunch with somebody this afternoon, and so that would be my for today. Maybe. I don't know. Dead would be easy. It would be Cormac McCarthy or Hunter Thompson. Maybe living might be maybe Chuck Palahniuk. Maybe I really would like to meet our governor of Colorado. I really think Jared Polis is an amazing person. I think what he's I don't know if you saw his post on about Mike Pence. Oh my God, he posted just an amazing post this morning. Just kind of Mike Pence. It was just like so perfect. I don't know. That's a really good one. I don't know. Give me a second. I'll come back to that one.
All right. We'll circle back around, as they say in the business world. If you had a perfect day, what would that look like for you? As you said, you're a very lucky kid. You don't have to do anything. You have some freedoms to set up a perfect day for yourself. Just off the top of your head, what would that look like for you?
Probably start off with, I've had a few pieces in the last several weeks of what I would consider my perfect day. Probably start off with a big cup of coffee and a walk, around a park, or a walk, just kind of a hang out. And then maybe, I have a gym here in my apartment, and I've been going there and just doing a little bit, maybe that. I can't be fat and old. I got to work on some stuff there. So, I love food. I love trying different foods. So maybe a big fun lunch. I love movies. I love movies. Maybe a movie, just kind of a relaxing, stress-free, kind of no agenda. And that's one of the things I've struggled with, with anxiety is I got to get this, I got to get this, I got to get this. And I'm really learning to kind of tone it down and just kind of be, through my counselors really got me, working on being in the moment and focusing on what what's in front of you as opposed to, or what's around you as opposed to what's down the road. A friend of mine told me the other day a while ago that she was so focused on a stop sign down the road that she ran the one right in front of her. And it was on and had it been a bad situation, it could have been worse. So,
do you happen to have?
Yeah. Oh no, go ahead.
Do you happen to have a hunch on how you think you will die?
I really didn't think I'd be alive this long. Hopefully in my sleep, I'm imagining heart disease. I'm imagining that's what's going to happen is heart disease, with stress and anxiety and and my love of food. But I've lost about 70 pounds in the last year. So I'm trying to get. I fit into a large shirt the other day, and
good for
34 jeans.
Hmm.
I'm pretty excited about that. And last night I saw some friends that I haven't seen in a while, and they pointed it out. It's one of those things where you don't see it until somebody else points it out.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd like to say no, I don't know. I'm going to guess I'll die of heart disease. That'll probably be we've got a lot of history of heart disease in my family and some cancers, but I hopefully in my sleep surrounded by my people, and that,
Okay.
the key is when you die that everybody who you care about knows how you felt, that there's no questions.
Is there something in your life that you feel the most grateful for? Something in your life that you feel just an overwhelming sense of gratitude about?
Yes, absolutely. When I'm named after a man named Paul Guthner, who was my grandpa's best friend. And he was a dear. He was one of my heroes growing up. He was absolutely. I called him Uncle Paul. He was one of my heroes. Every time I'd see him, he'd give me a silver dollar, like a real old silver dollar, and I still got every one he gave me. And I got to spend a lot of time with him. And I remember as a young adult, late teens, maybe early 20s, I hung out with him, and we talked about some real things. And he said that one of his goals in life, and one of the things that meant the most to him, was that he could go anywhere in the United States and he knew somebody. He knew somebody, or he had a friend of a friend. So I think the thing I am the most grateful for, and I've got a very, very extraordinary life, and I without getting it, I mean, I'm very, very lucky, and I'm very grateful for the life that I have. But I think my friends are probably the thing I'm the most grateful for. That I have. I was telling the story last night about when I cut my hand, and I was in the emergency room getting my hand put back together, on my birthday. And I came home from the emergency room, and there was 8 of you guys busting your ass in my house, and I never had felt more humbled and felt more gratitude towards having the people I have in my life than that. You guys just dropped everything and picked shit up, and there was no, I didn't even have to ask. You guys just did it. So I think the thing I'm the most grateful for is I've got an amazing circle, and it's been hard. I've lost a lot of friends. You go through a divorce and you lose. I lost 95% of my people that I thought cared about me, and it's okay. It's okay, because I also discovered that the people that care about me are there, and it's the friends I've got. So I think the thing I'm the most grateful for in my life is the people that choose me to be part of their circle.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all of that. It's an honor to be one of those friends in your circle, and to have had the privilege of hosting the conversations this morning, Paul. As we're wrapping things up, is there anything else that we didn't touch on today that you'd like to visit about, share with your audience? Any other words of wisdom or advice?
No, I'm just going to focus the next couple of weeks on getting this podcast. I want to book. I'd like to book somebody every other week. I think I'm also going to change formats a little bit, and I might record a bunch and not do them live, and just dump them, and just some smaller ones. I've sent out a couple messages this week to some people I'd love to have on the show. I sent a message to Molly. I don't remember her last name. It starts with a P. She's the lead singer of a band called Closet Witch, and she was so awesome. I'd love to have her on. I sent a message to the husband and wife that are the front people for a band called Spotlights. I'd love to have them on. I need to reach back out to Jake Anderson and see if I can't get him back on. I'd really like to spend the next several months tooling this up and getting this to where, I don't ever want to make any money on it. I don't want to, but I do enjoy having people on that. My friend Mike Mosley was on a couple weeks ago, and Mike is an attorney who got to argue in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, which I think is like hitting a home run in the World Series. I think that is such a big deal, and he's got the most views on YouTube, and he's at 70 views in just about 2 weeks. And I think that I have, as I've said many times, I have an extraordinary life. And the reason I have this extraordinary life is because of the people that have chosen to go on this ride with me. And they've all got stories. They've all got great stories. And I want to give everybody a chance to tell their story, because that's what life is. Penn Jillette says that when you die, the only thing that's remembered is a collection of stories. And So I want to work on that. So yeah, so anybody out there has any ideas of people that want to come on or ideas of, I posted that on one of the social medias, and a guy replied back and he said, "Well, what would we talk about?" I'm like, "Well, you and I are going to talk about nothing. If you can't come on and I mean, it's just really, well, what are we going to talk about?" Well, I'm not going to. I mean, if you got to ask that, you're probably not a very good guest on a show. So, I mean, I had Brandon Ringo on a couple weeks ago, and oh my God, I love that kid. He's one of my favorites. And he's got a list, and it's like, we got like 90 minutes. And at the end, he's like, "Man, we didn't talk about this. We didn't talk about this." I said, "Man, we had a great show. We had a great, and he had so much enthusiasm." So he's the lead singer of a band called Mammoth Caravan. And
Okay.
I had him on to talk a little bit about that, and he's putting together a book. He's interviewed people. He for a metal magazine. He's interviewed Rob Halford, Rob Zombie, Glenn Danzig, Lemmy, and he's got all these interviews. And Prater and I were saying, "Dude, you need to put these in a book." He's like, "Oh, is that bragging? Is that am I saying look how important?" I'm like, "Dude, that's your resume. You've got to interview some of the greatest people in metal. I would read that book." So he got permission. We talked about it, and he got permission from the magazine, which is now defunct, to put that together. And so that's exciting. So I don't know. I don't have a whole lot else going on. So I'm just going to focus on kind of growing as a person, growing the show, growing my magic show. My kid graduates in May, and I mean, as you know, you're for the first time in 25 plus years, you're an empty nester.
Yeah.
And
It's different.
In May, it's just me. It's just me. 10 years ago, I had 4 people in my house, and in May, it's just me. So the kiddo is coming out with me in November for a week. She's going to be out here for the cheese dip competition and Thanksgiving. So I'm really looking forward to spending some time. And then Leah is coming over from Nashville the couple days after, so I get to spend some time with my kids. That's a close second on the gratefulness list, but I think I'm going to include them in the people that are around me. So,
And open invitation to come see you in Little Rock.
Yeah,
see some of these places you've been talking about, meet some of these folks, and see some of these cool new adventures that we'll be launching first part of next year.
There's a bar here in Argenta that I frequent quite a bit, and it's called Reno's, and I love it. And I can tell you, when I was out here last year for that extended time, staying with Paul and Sarah to help Sarah move her salon, we were sitting at Reno's one night, and I was just kind of looking around, and I thought, I had this epiphany that I think this is where I want to be. This is, it was full of grown-ups. It wasn't a old Chicago kind of meat market like we have, or any of those other shitty bars downtown where it's just shot specials and blah, blah, blah. It was just grown-ups, and everybody was having fun, and you could hear, they had music, but you could hear the person you're sitting across from, and you could have real conversations. And some of, Paul and I, Prater and I went there 2 weeks ago, after his first of his seance shows, and we're sitting at the bar where, I made the joke to Paul that if we planned, okay, tomorrow at 1:00 we're going to sit down and workshop the seance, we wouldn't get anything done. But we're sitting at a bar doing fireball shots, and we came up with some amazing stuff. And this girl sitting down next to us, and she just keeps looking over, and she's like, "Can I listen to what you guys are talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about, but it's so interesting." And it's just that's what it's a fun place, and I look forward to you coming out, and I look forward to some of the other dudes coming out and checking this place out. It's a fun little community. I'm very lucky that I've fallen in here.
Paul, I appreciate you. Appreciate the opportunity to host Mystery Collection Conversations this morning. I know you're going to get these uploaded and shared on the social medias. Keep having fun down there. Seems like you've really found a special place and you're enjoying yourself. I know there's going to be some prizes handed out. Paul mentioned a couple of things during the conversation today. So if you get to be one of the first ones, Facebook myself, we'll send you a cool prize. He mentioned a certain musical group and probably one of his favorite songs from that musical group. If you can drop that in the chat or let Paul know, or myself, we'll send you out a special prize. And he mentioned a couple of books, but one in particular that I'm thinking of. So drop in one of Paul's favorite books written by 2 authors that he has deeply enjoyed over the course of the last couple of years, especially. So, song by a certain group and a certain book by a couple of authors, and we'll send you some mystery collection merch.
That's a good idea. I've got a bajillion T-shirts I need to clean up before I start ordering more. I've got all these great T-shirt ideas, and so I order them, and then they build up. The Drink Whiskey Hail Satan has been a pretty popular one down here, down in the the Arkansas Sea of Red Bible Belt's been a pretty popular one. So I've been giving those out left and right. I do want to mention November 21st, I'm having my friend Terry Tyson on. And Terry, I arguably, there is nobody in the United States, maybe the world, that knows more about seance and the performance of seance and the practice of communication and spirit communication than my friend Terry. I met Terry. Terry is... I've known about Terry ever since I started doing magic. I've read about him and read his stuff, and he kind of just was, and I'll talk to him about it, he kind of was off the radar. He just was performing and writing and not doing conventions. And I got to know him at a convention, and he loved my humor, I guess I'll say, my humor. And we just kind of caught, and we've become dear friends, and I'm really looking forward to having him on November 21st. And then hopefully we'll have a big announcement coming up in the next couple of weeks where I'll have a little surprise pop-up with my friends Marcus and Prater to announce a project we're working on. I've tried to talk this woman that I'm seeing down here who I don't want to put her on the spot, but by outing her to come on. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but that would be a fun one. She's amazing. She's got a very cool job. She's just I'm quite smitten. So I hope some of these outreach attempts to get people on the show would be good. And if you're listening to this and you've got some ideas and you've got something to talk about, come on. And it's easy. It's a Zoom. And also I need to point out a big thanks to my friend Soydon. I had a little bit of a tech issue yesterday, and Soydon jumped, and we FaceTimed last night and hopefully got it worked out. Hopefully everything works the way it should. But yeah, I guess I'll close with just saying again that I close every show, every Mystery Collection show I do, that I am the luckiest kid in the world. That I all of my friends and the people that come out to my shows and the people that watch this and the people that listen to my silly stories a million times, they've made a little boy's dream come true. And this is all I ever wanted to do, is stand in front of people and make them laugh. I wanted to be a stand-up comedian when I was a kid, and grew up listening to Bill Hicks and Sam Kinison and Richard Pryor and George Carlin. And that's all I ever wanted to do, is be entertaining and be fun. And I'm the luckiest kid in the world. So this will be on YouTube probably this afternoon, and all the podcast formats tomorrow. So check it out on YouTube, Mystery Collection channel on YouTube, or whatever podcast format you listen to. I'm not on Apple yet. It says it takes sometimes up to 60 days to get approval for Apple. So
I'll jump over to Spotify.
Yeah, they're on Spotify, they're on Stitcher, they're on Amazon, they're on all the other stuff, but I'm not on Apple yet. So I can't imagine that they would say no. So, but yeah, that's about it. So thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
I say this, and I say this stuff to people so much that I think it takes away its meaning, but I hope it never does. I love you, buddy. You are a big deal to me. So I appreciate everything you've done. And for the G-Town folks, Monday the 6th, Ryan and I will be at Ziggy's Coffee at 5:30 a.m. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when I'm in town, we meet at Ziggy's Coffee on West 10th at 5:30 in the morning. And we've had a visitor before. We have had one person join us. Our friend Travis Krause joined us. We've had and Aaron Havens has joined us as well.
Aaron Havens stopped by. Mm-hmm.
So if you're in Greeley, and coffee at 5:30 Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sometimes we open baseball cards. Sometimes we
talk about mental health. Sometimes we talk about selling the Colorado Rockies.
Right. So I say sometimes we open baseball cards and talk baseball, and other times we talk about real stuff, and other times we just sit there and say shit. So. All right. Well, thanks, Ryan. Stay on, and I'll talk to you after we go off. But I appreciate you. Love you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you.
Keep it. Thanks.